Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Game Informer Show live from E3. I'm Ben Hanson. I'm joined by Kimberley Wallace.
Hello.
Suriel Vazquez.
Yeah.
And comedian Kyle Hilliard.
That's me.
Welcome, everybody. We're in LA, everybody. We've been at E3 for a couple days, but somehow it's only Monday, and E3 hasn't really started yet.
Yeah, I feel like
I'm
E3's
still
been going
trying
on
to
for
figure
4
this whole
years.
thing out. Suriel, this is your first E3 ever. What do you think of it so far?
It's very pleasant. I've had a lot of time to not really do anything E3 related and go explore LA, which is a very dirty city, but it's
How
fun.
dare you? Wait, but what's been the highlight so far for you?
The Donut King across the street from our hotel.
It is wonderful.
It is a wonderful
and
place. It's
excellent
got a nice
everywhere.
little Buddha statue. It's very fun.
It is a good time. So what we're doing with this episode of the Game Informer Show is we're going to be breaking down all of the press conferences that we've technically seen so far. The only outlier is the weirdo Nintendo Direct, because we were recording this Monday night, and that is Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
So we do not know exactly what's in that thing. But the overall premise is we're breaking down the 5 biggest surprises. This is the classic E3 rundown, except instead of all of E3, it's just press conferences. So we're covering what? EA's, Microsoft's, Ubisofts, Bethesda's, Sony's. All of them are in there. Sorry, Nintendo, but we'll definitely talk about Nintendo a lot tomorrow because we'll actually have experience playing the games, and it's going to be pretty fun. Gosh, I guess, Kim, you want to kick this whole thing off? Number 5?
That's what you get for sitting on that part of the couch.
Yeah, so I guess for me, finally seeing Anthem, BioWare's new IP.
Out of the gate with Anthem.
Number 5, because I still don't feel like I know what to expect from that. I'll be honest, I saw Microsoft's trailer, and I was not interested at all.
Really? Just
not
the art
Microsoft,
style,
sorry,
or
not
what?
Microsoft. When they showed it at EA, and it was just very brief and looked very generic. Not like BioWare. And then I was happy I actually saw gameplay, because then I was like, ooh, jetpacks, and I just kind of liked... I know, it's got that Destiny vibe that people are obviously comparing it to, but think about that a little bit, but if BioWare can they've promised what they've delivered with character and story, so I'd be interested to see where they can go in a different world. I feel like they've been tied to Mass Effect and tied in Dragon Age, and I think it's good for them to kind of break off and try a new IP, no strings attached, can do what they want.
Yeah.
The only, like I said, troubling part is that there are so many comparisons to other games out there looking at it. Like,
well,
it doesn't
just
look
one
like
game out
unique
there.
BioWare. I think people were saying other games too, though,
Yeah.
with it.
It's
Like,
tough when you have that kind of like worn down, a little bit Star Wars take on kind of a more fantasy
People are saying
sci-fi.
It's like
Titanfall,
sci-fi.
too, people were saying.
Well, there was
Titanfall
that
does
moment in the
something.
gameplay where like the co-op buddy
Yeah.
like dropped down, basically like
Yeah, there's
Titanfall
some
landed next to
Titanfall,
him.
some Destiny, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just excited to see it. I mean, we've been hearing about this IP for so long, and this was our first look at it.
It
Yeah,
definitely feels like a big departure from what they've done before in terms of... I mean, I feel like they've been slowly building up to it, right? Like, they were very RPG-focused, and then over the years, they've sort of gone in this more action-oriented direction, and this is sort of just dropping the premise of just, we're not really an RPG. There's experience and stuff, like every game has, basically, but we're basically a shooter now. And so,
I'm sure the rest of that marketing campaign is going to be like, don't worry, guys. We've got your classic BioWare characters here ready to go, but it's E3. They have to get out of the gate with action, crazy storm sequence and stuff like that. But what did you make of that split between first person to third person, where it kicks off and it felt like a real, I don't know if it's a, subtle nod to Mass Effect Andromeda's complaints, but it's like, hey, look at this, just full facial animation, just crazy, could not be closer to the camera. Look at
the wrinkles on the side of his
we
mouth.
put time into this one, guys, for real.
Really, it looked good. Who knows how it'll actually look when the game ships. But then during the action gameplay, then it switched to third person. So I'm very curious to see how similar the finished game looks when you're walking around talking to people, getting quests in that, in theory, hub area.
I feel it'll be mostly third person. I think that
So why would they get out of the gate like that?
at first I like to like you said, to show off the facial animation.
To put people in the game better or something.
I think
that's
that's
a stylistic choice.
I think that's more of a flair thing. I think it could be
That'd
in the
be
game.
a misleading bit of flair, man.
I mean, trailers are misleading all the time.
Maybe it's going to be like the opposite of Blizzard's Titan, because wasn't that third person then the first person when you went out on missions, the rumored MMO and all that nonsense?
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that first
I
person
think
thing. But
that's what I like about it still so far. Is it's such a wild card that even though we've just seen some gameplay, I still have no idea what to make of it. But that I think it looks cool. And I'm eager, like I said, to find out more as soon as they start dropping more details. Now, I hope this isn't one of those cases, because we've had this with BioWare, where they show a trailer and it's very little, and we don't get anything else for a long time. And even the next drips we get don't even give us much information. So I'm hoping it's not that long of a wait. They didn't put a release date on that, right?
God, I don't think
they did. I think it was just this is the first gameplay. So
yeah.
I hope we don't have to wait too long, and I also hope that we get some more clarification on exactly what this game is, what they're going for, because there's only so much I could gather from that trailer except jetpacks.
Well, jetpacks, you got the hot words. I love learning, like,
Yeah.
okay, what are going to be the words that are going to be very commonplace years from now when this game comes out, and in theory it's going to be more of like a game as a service. But, okay, so you're called a freelancer, right? So you can name your character anything you want in theory, and then all the NPCs can be like, yo, freelancer, over here, so that's good. And then we have javelins. Those are the mechs, right? You got the unique, or the exosuits technically, right? And then scars are the enemies, at least like the first enemy we saw.
Yeah, that's right.
What did you guys think of that storm at the end? Do you think that's going to be like a portal to bring you to different locations, or was that just a one-off set-piece thing?
I think set-piece thing. Just
Yeah,
a cool thing to interact with in the environment. Look how
But
nice
what
this
happens
looks.
when they go inside of it then?
It's just hard to see. It's like Gears of War 4.
It's
Just
raining.
a storm is
hard to
happening.
see.
and
But the whole
stuff
thing
gets
is like,
thrown
we
around.
gotta go in it.
Yeah,
Gears of
we
War
gotta
4
go
wasn't like,
in
we're
it.
going into the center of the tornado.
That's when they show off their cool like windshield wiper tech.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like Metroid Prime. You know, like you can see Samus's face.
that's what they're going for this
Yeah,
time?
it's like they really want to show off that tech. You know, the facial animations.
Isn't it really just, you gotta look, please look at these faces. We've worked extra hard on these faces.
One
please.
thing I'm kind of worried about watching that footage, and overall I thought it looked pretty good. I'm excited to see more, but I don't know if you read Kotaku to write up about Mass Effect Andromeda recently and what went wrong. And one of the things that they called out in that is they said that they're working with the Frostbite engine, which is what this is as well. It is not great at building large environments, and they made a point in this to be like, it's huge open worlds you can explore with your friends. And so the idea of pushing Frostbite to its limits again, you know, it's the Edmonton studio instead of Montreal. Maybe there's some more tech expertise over there. It's tough to say exactly. You know, other studios are helping out with this as well, but that is a big concern again. Is like my biggest complaint about Andromeda was like, it's too big. It just can't handle. It's spread too thin. It's shaky.
Everyone's kind of, after Dragon Age and Mass Effect, a lot of people are like, oh, guys don't really need to do open worlds.
And so to push it out of the gate again in the first gameplay, it's like, oh,
back
God.
at it again. We're going to make all this landmass. You're not gonna explore much of it. And it's gonna be kind of boring. But I don't know. Like a lot, it looks a lot more dense than a lot of.
I mean, it looked better than
Andromeda.
anything else we've saw, like with Andromeda and even like.
Oh, for
Inquisition.
sure.
So, I don't know. A lot of people have been working on this since the end of Mass Effect 3. The team that's been working on it, so maybe they have something that they know that they didn't share with the Andromeda team or something.
We're withholding
like
it.
the face
It's
tech.
I'm gonna ship we know what we're doing.
So
but we're
you're
not
saying
We've
gonna-
got
Mass Effect-
faces figured out. It's fine.
Mass Effect Andromeda was there to set the stage for people to appreciate Anthem more. Is what you're saying?
Wow.
Are
dare you? The
for any
BioWare conspiracy
No,
theory.
I
no.
didn't
I'm just
say it,
saying
per se.
that team might have a little more expertise with this.
As far as the release date goes, I remember in an interview that was in the podcast format, but it wasn't on the podcast technically, I guess, but it was with the general manager of BioWare, Aaron Flynn, and he said that the game was more done than you would expect. So maybe next year.
Available tomorrow.
Yeah, who knows?
Free
But
to
that was-
play.
Well,
Download right
here's
now.
what I say. I hope they
Sure.
learn something with Andromeda, which is maybe take your. We always say this with
Take your time.
take your time with Dragon Age 2. I feel like they took their time with Inquisition in a way that they needed to. But looking at back in Andromeda, like that game still has. I didn't finish Andromeda yet because I just keep hearing all these updates are going to roll out. That's going to make that experience at least a little bit better.
Hey, Kim, I don't think any updates really
We'll
going to turn
fix
that
what
game
it's gonna
around.
be,
It
but
is. It
still.
is what it is. There's
But
good
still,
stuff buried
the-
in there.
The condition that are launched in, to me, like with my hair couldn't even animate right on my avatar, which drove me nuts. Every scene, it took me out of it. Like that stuff needs to be like fixed. Like that shouldn't have been shipped.
There's
that
the option
way.
just to
Patch
wear your
notes.
helmet.
It's good now.
That's the fix.
Yeah, just put the helmet on.
Patch
the entire
now
time.
just
Hair
keeps the
is
helmet
very
on your head.
important, like-
Oh, totally.
Sure. Also, really got to give it up. I love a good, simple name. Anthem, I think, is a super strong name.
I was not
as
expecting
Ben
that.
Reese has been saying, Anaheim.
Yeah, I
all
mean,
week
did I
long.
say Anthem? I'm sorry, I meant Anaheim.
Yeah.
Well, we laugh about it, but now that has been that seed has been planted in my head where I do pause and call it Anaheim.
Also,
now.
yeah, I think you could do. There's a NPC faction called Anthem Angels, just to further confuse you once the game actually.
Oh, they're
comes
great. They're so good. They're very good at baseball.
Out. All right, Hot Shot, great one. I'm so glad that
Yeah.
came up, Kim. It seemed like Joe was more of a skeptic. I'm excited to get him on the podcast.
I was
to talk
actually
about
more
it.
excited about it, I think, than he was. He was right away was like, I don't see what makes this different or interesting from other games. So
again, it's out of the gate action.
Yeah.
Like, you know, even like Mass Effect 3's E3 press conference, like I think they showed the intro sequence. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, they did the outside air, like when you're on Earth in the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like that's not the core of what makes Mass Effect 3 great. Is awkwardly sliding down a dumb roof.
Right.
You know. Suriel, number 5.
My number 5 was Anaheim by BioWare Entertainment. No, it was Anthem. But one thing to talk about real quick is I'm curious to see what they do with the gear. Because in that demo, they showed off like, oh, I've got Jared's Wrath. And the guy was like, oh, nice. In the most fake possible. Fake
That's
online chat, which is my favorite trend in trailers. Don't stop
I haven't gotten that cave yet.
It's like not the serious, like, you know, when I play Destiny, we were talking about like sports and like just random people. It's like, oh, my daughter woke up. I gotta go. we gotta come back in like 5 minutes, and everyone just sit around and check your phones.
I want that at an E3 press conference where it's like, all right, let's do this mission. Oh, wait, hold on, my daughter's crying, and then there's just like 45 seconds of them waiting.
And then cut to an audience shot of everyone just checking their phones. It's just exact same expressions.
Is he gonna be back? Because like I gotta go do this. But no, like the gear stuff. Just I think they're.
Hang on, sorry. Was that not a joke? Your number 5 is actually also Anthem.
Yeah, Anaheim. Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, I thought they were just going for a punchline, but the gear and the loot specifically.
Yeah. So I mean, they're very much hinting at like we want the Destiny thing of we want you to have these specific stories around this gear, and I'm wondering because I've never felt super attached to any piece of gear in a BioWare game that I've ever had. It just feels like always stat based. So I'm curious to see how they sort of use exotics, for example, and say like how crazy are the guns going to get here and how much of a draw that's going to be. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, it's a. I mean, to build this game up, I think Destiny has proven how much of a development learning curve it is for a studio to be like, oh, we're just going to embrace loot and exploration and like long-term RPG mechanics. Like it has been years of hell for everybody at Bungie to try and get it somewhat sustainable.
And other studios. There's just a lot of studios who see something successful and they're like, we want to do that, and then they can't do it as well. It's like even someone who everyone says like they didn't do it that well to start. And then, like, some people just never get it right, but Bungie has. So.
Yeah, for sure. Great one. Kyle, number 5.
Anaheim, obviously. No, I'm going for the punchline. Mine is kind of a small one. Is the Zelda costumes in Skyrim.
Oh, you would say that.
Yeah, it's not.
Boy. That's a surprise. Sure. No. It's not like this big highlight of E3, but it was like a surprising thing that I was like, I guess that kind of works, and I like the idea of walking around with a Hyrulean shield in Skyrim.
Okay, when you say works comedically, because it looks ugly, and I'm into it in the same way I'm into like E3's t-shirts. Just like it's just janky and a little bit messed up, and I'm into the idea of just cosplaying.
I
like it that it's sort of like if sword and shield fits in Skyrim, but it's odd that it's Zelda. Like the idea of walking around with the Master Sword is just weird and strange.
That was maybe my favorite part of it though. Like just seeing like here's the Master Sword. I'm not gonna do. I'm not a big fan of Skyrim, so I don't think I'm gonna play this. But the idea of like, oh, by the way, here's the Master Sword. I was like, huh.
The question is, how good is that sword? Is it like a piece of garbage?
Well, it's the only one that breaks.
Yeah, Joe made that joke. It's the only one that breaks. Yeah. So, and I would like to play Skyrim on Switch.
Hang on though. Here's the question I didn't even think about till now. What if you play as like a Khajiit? Like a dumb lizard guy, will you then be still dressed up in Link's tunic?
They're all worthy of the Master Sword, obviously.
That's gonna be so stupid.
Well, I also liked the point that Jeff Cork made on our wrap up when after that conference was that you can be a real jerk in Skyrim, and you can just like murder people just like have a pile of dead bodies in your house, and just kind of like that person that goes and like piles up a bunch of dead people and like puts on his Breath of the Wild tunic and goes and stands on top and
but you
just
don't
takes that
roleplay
screenshot.
You don't roleplay it like you're Link though. You'd roleplay it like you also murdered Link and now you're wearing his awkward clothes in your murder hut.
Now that you guys mentioned that, I think it'd be super cool if like when you spawn the Master Sword, it would just spawn on the pedestal and you had to pull it out. And if you were like killed enough people, you just couldn't pull it out.
But you need enough of an HP upgrade in Skyrim.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, the question was raised if like I think the only one that gives you that stuff is probably that Link amiibo. But like, will there be other Nintendo crap in the game? If I scan Mario, can I?
First of all, Kyle, we don't call things crap on this podcast.
That's kind of your thing.
Please leave it to the experts.
Nintendo junk. What kind of Nintendo
Nonsense.
junk can I?
Yes.
Nonsense. Thank you. Mario hats. mushrooms in my inventory to
Waluigi.
eat.
It's a slippery slope. They have to call it off because if they're like trying to support Shovel Knight in Skyrim, like there's a threshold where it just becomes stupid.
I think it stops at Breath of the Wild. I don't think anything else does anything in that game.
And like, I'm
30th anniversary Super Mario that turns you all blocky.
Ooh, that's good. I mean, there is something kind of heartwarming about the idea of, you know, the Breath of the Wild team inspired by Skyrim, I'm sure, to some degree.
Yeah.
And then to like tip the cap, and I'm sure Bethesda is just filled with Zelda lovers. You know, I'm sure all those people are just huge fans of the original Zelda. Moving on, I'm sure they're blown away by Breath of the Wild. You know, and so just to have a nice, you know, across the ocean handshake between those studios, there's something really sweet about that.
It's also like, you know, what does it mean moving forward too? Like clearly they're getting along, I guess, right? So we're going to see more Bethesda stuff on Switch.
So you're saying that the Elder Scrolls Online team can finally move on to the Pokemon MMO that we've all been talking about?
Yeah, that's my number 4. just you know, shooting into the sky and just hoping for the best.
The thing we've been talking about, but it does not in any way exist.
Naturally.
That's a surprise.
My number 5, it's a small detail, but I think it encapsulates a lot. And tell me if it's going to step on anybody's toes here for their numbers. But it was Phil Spencer on stage during the Xbox press conference. First of all, announcing the bizarre backwards compatibility with the original Xbox, and then following that up with, yes, including Crimson Skies, everybody. Like, that is where corporations are at, where they're appealing to the fandoms of games like Crimson Skies, which I loved back in the day, but it's not like it's, you know, Halo. It's Crimson Skies. But, like, that is just amazing that they go out of their way that much to tip the cap to players.
Well, like, so, okay, because you look at the Xbox library, that was a launch title, right? Or at least very nearly a launch title.
Maybe around there, sure.
Because then, like, the other options are Halo. It's like, well, you can already play Halo on
for
your
sure.
Xbox One. And then what else do you have? Munch's Odyssey, I guess.
Right.
I bet a lot of people are kicking themselves. They bought that Voodoo Vince remaster.
Yeah, that's right. They could have just played Voodoo Vince.
And that's what's crazy is you can literally pop in the disc and then play it that way,
exactly.
which is where it gets absolutely insane to think about. And then beyond that, it came out after that, you can literally system link.
Exactly. With, like, across consoles.
You can system link an original Xbox with an Xbox 360, with an Xbox One, with an Xbox One X.
Yeah.
And play Crimson Skies. Like, that is something that I'll never do in 1 million years.
I mean, apparently no one does, according to recent studies.
Well, they pointed
they
out in a
yeah,
nice
they
slap in the
reviewed
face
it,
for
right.
Sony. Yeah, 50% of people have experimented with 360 backwards compatibility, which sounds about right.
Yeah.
I don't call BS on those stats.
Yeah.
Are there any, like, games in that list that would, like, need to come? Like, what Xbox games you're like, I wish I could play them on my Xbox
Voodoo
One?
Vince.
Voodoo Vince. Knights of the Old Republic?
Yeah.
Maybe? I'm trying to think of, like, what
the
other...
original Ninja Gaiden, is that available anywhere?
I just don't know if there's something...
Black
I'm trying to
certainly.
think of games that people have been clamoring for on the original Xbox. You know, and
Yeah,
I don't
I
can't
think
think of
we're
that name.
scraping. We're down to Crimson
Yeah.
Skies.
Yeah.
You know, we're
Once
down to
they got
Phantom
Voodoo Vince
Dust.
out
That was
there,
my,
that
the
was
biggest
Oh,
surprise that what they're selling.
Jade
Crimson
Empire,
Skies.
maybe.
Jade Empire, yeah.
Yeah.
By the
Jade
Ghoulies.
Empire would be good.
But even that's on
Yeah,
iOS, right?
Yeah.
Get it on the best way.
Yeah, that's true. It is an iOS, isn't it? Anyways, that's my number 5.
It's a good one.
But just the larger point is Xbox being on point with messaging. Outside of maybe focusing too much on numbers, are you guys going to talk about Scorpio at all?
No.
No.
Oh.
Okay, well, this is a good place to talk about it.
Sure,
then.
sure,
Like,
yeah.
Outside of, you know,
I love how that's not on any of our lists.
I know.
It's, not,
well,
it's just not a surprise. It's not. I don't think they made any headway with that.
they've been doing interviews about Project Scorpio for a year now, and so just like adding the
You hear
X
the
name.
same thing. Oh, our best console, fastest console ever. You know, like
Yeah, I feel like everyone. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't want.
expect it to
I don't
be
want to sound
better.
like, oh, I knew along, but like, I feel like once they finished that conference, everyone came to the same conclusion that I kind of already had in my head of like, yeah, it's just gonna be like a PlayStation 4 Pro, but from Microsoft, where it's just like everyone's gonna be like, oh, these are some really nice improvements. If you have a 4K TV, you absolutely should probably get this. But it is just another Xbox. It's not gonna, change the way you play games. It's not really gonna, do anything for like gameplay or anything. It's just gonna be here's a nicer Xbox.
Maybe you missed the point though, Suriel, where they repeatedly said this thing's a monster.
true.
Check out this Portion 11, by the way.
I
This
only-
thing's a monster
I
as well.
only play with monsters, so
Also,
I
hang
have
on
to
real
get
quick on this monster note. They harped on monster, and then during the Crackdown 3 gameplay sequence, the music was "Are You a Beast?" And then later on, Assassin's Creed Origins at Ubisoft's press conference, when they came out, they're like, "Man, this game's a beast." There's a lot of just like talking about games as like, "Oh, this crazy thing you're trying to."
I mean, they
wrestle."
were gonna use Killer Mike's Big Beast as the thing, but that fell through. And then the other one they were gonna use Kanye West's Monster, and that also fell through.
Everything
Yeah,
falls through. So they were very sly about dropping that price point for Xbox One X.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, at
They
the end of the press conference.
They said it,
Yep.
but didn't have the number on screen, right? Is it, or did it,
I
was
think
it
that's what it
reversed?
was. It was
Okay.
real quick. Just $4.99. Moving on, which was the original launch price for
Yeah.
the original Xbox One. Not insane, although that came out with a Kinect. If you care about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original draft of that script, I actually saw it, and it said 500.
Is that right?
Yeah, no.
I'll be damned.
I
at the
guess
end.
so. The one sort of advantage PS4 Pro versus Xbox One X, which is hard to say because you want to say S,
Right.
is it does have faster loading times. That's like the if
Yeah.
you don't have a 4K, that's
TV.
the advantage,
Yeah,
right?
PS4 Pro has that too.
They do? Okay.
A little bit.
And
Not-
they
not as
did
much.
they
I would
claim that
hope they would all be faster loading times.
yeah, they claim that it looks better even on 1080p as well, right? Like they made that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they
there,
said
there are going to
that.
be improvements even if you don't have it.
yeah, even still, that's so minor.
I mean, it's a new console. It should look freaking better. I
Yeah,
mean,
it should. It's a nice design.
I guess it's surprising that it's smaller. It's got
Yeah.
that was
gray
about
shape.
the only thing that surprised me when
Oh,
they
really?
showed how
The
tiny
size
it
of the
was, but
Xbox One X, my
Yeah.
number 5.
Our
I also-
smallest,
I-
our smallest.
I think it
Xbox,
might
yeah.
excise the power brick too, but that's not totally
It's
clear.
internal.
It's
It's
internal.
Is
That's
that right? That's really
so s-
impressive.
yeah.
Also, it has liquid cooling. I don't know if you know that.
That's
Oh,
true.
really?
That's saved for just
Also,
like
you can do a
volcanoes.
side-
I heard they invented that.
They invented
They
liquid.
invented liquid.
Oh yeah, I guess I should mention I did play the new Xbox.
Oh,
X.
pray tell, Kim.
Yeah, when
where?
I was on the Assassin's Creed Origin
Ooh.
story, we
What?
got to play. We got to play on it.
What a
I-
surprise.
I mean, it was hard because I played on PC first, and then they were like, "Oh, we have it here. You want to try it?" And so I did, and I thought I noticed like a good visual difference, but I didn't know like the specs of the PC I was playing
Sure.
on to really make that one-to-one comparison. But I mean, I did notice things looked better on
Yeah.
it, as I would hope that they would. But other than that, there's not much that you can like look at and be like, oh yeah, you need this like right this second. I mean, it just depends on how big. I always joke, how big of a graphics snob are you? Like, where does it matter to you? And for people who I think don't have an Xbox One yet, well, and we're thinking of getting one, like obviously you're probably, and especially if a 4K TV, then you're gonna want it. So yeah, I actually did play it.
I feel like that's actually a good point. Like that's what these consoles have been delegated to already. Is like, well, I need a PS4. I might as well get a Pro.
Yeah, like why would you
That's
go back
exactly
on
what
an
I did.
older
It's
model
like,
at
yeah,
this
I'll
point?
shell out the extra money with the idea that maybe in a couple months or years I'll have a 4K TV and it's
Exactly.
compatible.
Although to be fair, I feel like Microsoft puts up the Xbox One S is like what, 200 now or 240 or some
maybe
reduced?
3. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the price.
Like the price point is reduced enough to where like that might not be an
Bad choice.
easy choice of like, well, I could go 250 and just get the console that I'm gonna use more often. It's cheaper.
Yeah, for sure. Assassin's Creed Origins, Kim.
Oh, is
I
that
mean,
on
that's
your
our.
list?
Oh no, it's not. It seems cool.
Yeah, that's our cover story.
Yeah, for sure. You were on that trip with Cork?
Yeah.
Hippos?
Hippos, flamingos. There's lots.
My two favorite animals.
I know. Camels,
Third.
crocodiles.
That's a third, fourth. You're hitting all these points, Kim.
I know, right? Actually, I have a very in-depth article on the site. It's like 5 things you need to know that kind of breaks down everything about the new game. But it feels like this is definitely like a depart. Like I joke around because every time we see a new Assassin's Creed game, they're like, "We're gonna reinvent combat." Like I feel like that's been said
that's
so
the
many
drum, yeah.
times. But they are definitely going in this more RPG direction. Which I think is interesting in the respect that like your level matters and you'll be leveling up your gear and you have to craft and make things better to even stand a chance in battle. And also battles are just like more calculated in general, and just noticing the controls in my, like, I haven't had to think this much in an Assassin's Creed game about how I approach combat, which some people aren't going to like that. I personally, I thought it was a good change of pace for me to try to consider, like, oh, if I don't dodge, if I don't put my shield up as I'm going in to block those arrows, like, I'm screwed. If I don't level up my hidden blades now, I can't just, like, one-shot someone, like...
I love it, but I remember I was also there on the Unity trip with you,
Yes.
and that was also the exact
Well,
marketing
that is
message.
exactly what I said to Cork. I was like, I heard this whole spiel before
Yeah.
with Unity. It was very similar. But this one, like, to put it in a respect of, like, what's different or not, I had hands-on with Unity on our cover story trip, and I also had hands-on with Origins, and I noticed a big difference in the battle, how the battles played out in Origins in a way I didn't in Unity. Like, I noticed slight differences. This feels much more like I never thought I'd have to think for like a boss battle in an Assassin's Creed game, you know, like memorizing sometimes enemy patterns. And I like the eagle that you now can control. That's really cool because you can scout ahead of time. One thing I've always kind of not liked about Assassin's Creed, I feel like I couldn't plan as well as I wanted to, how I wanted to like infiltrate somewhere. And with that eagle, you can look ahead of time and find like all the treasure and mark it, all the enemies, and even like hidden passageways by being able to scout that out ahead of time, so you can plan your. So it's just much more like strategic in your planning, that's the most promising feature in my opinion. I like the damn eagle.
That's good to hear because like I feel like one and especially two, I feel had that feeling of okay, here I am in this location, I'm going to plan my attack points and how I'm gonna get out. But like as the series went on, it just felt like they just had you following objective markers more often. So the idea that you could plan a little bit now with the eagle, I think is pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, no, that was my favorite.
That's ACO, but what's your number 5? Number 4.
I never thought I would say this, but the Mario Rabbids game, man.
Number 4.
Here's the thing. There's like that leak that happened, and I had heard about this ahead of time. I was just like, that sounds horrible. Like, I don't trust like a Mario like Rabbids crossover, right? And so today at the press conference, we finally saw what that was, and I was like, actually, I'm really into this. Like, make it about like that's the thing. They didn't just try to make it a platformer. They made like this. Again, strategic gameplay that I adore in any game. That felt different, and it's its own take. And I don't know, I got really enamored with it when I was watching that trailer, and I was surprised because I had no interest whatsoever. I was like, this is just.
I feel like that was you and everyone on the internet. I feel like that is one of the biggest about faces I've ever seen on a game. Before when that league was coming out, I was like, this is complete garbage. They are killing Nintendo. Ubisoft is bad.
I don't understand.
Rabbids games haven't been like. Great.
Well, they haven't been great, but when did the Rabbids sodomize everybody's children? Like, I don't understand this hatred.
I honestly think the minions are responsible.
It's bleed over hate, but it just
exactly.
Doesn't make sense. I just feel like those games haven't been great in a while, and then to be like to take something iconic like a Mario, and put it into that Rabbids universe. It's like, how's that gonna work? And when you think about it, it doesn't make sense. But then when they showed off that gameplay, I mean, like. Even just how Mario looked in the game, everything you could tell Nintendo had consulted greatly with them on that. I liked Miyamoto coming out. That was amazing.
I do wonder if they brought him on because they kind of went into that with bad press. Do you think? Am I overthinking that?
I think they would have brought him on either way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they had those guns. They didn't make those guns overnight.
Sequence in the world with the little guns.
And again,
they hold back together. Oh, it's so cute.
That had so much potential to be like another awkward Ubisoft moment of just, here's this thing, and everyone's just like, oh my god, Ubisoft. But that went off so well. I feel like that was sort of the beginning of the turn. It was like, you know what, Miyamoto's so adorable, and like maybe this game will be okay. And then everyone saw it, and it's like it's still a little weird because it's like it's still weird to see Mario taking cover and then shooting out at people. But I think as the trailer went on, I was like, oh, this is actually
let the
really
record show, Kyle. What was I saying for the last 2 weeks on this podcast?
That you hate the Rabbids because the TV show.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what
to your credit, you have been defending that game at every opportunity.
You and Phil Kohler are the two people who were like, this game's looking cool.
Kohler was against it, right? Am I misunderstanding his Twitter feed? I don't know.
I think he changed his Twitter name to Rabbids fan number 1.
Yeah, I thought he was being ironic.
Too, it's hard to trust anybody else but Nintendo with Mario, right? Like, you kind of just are like, can they,
Yeah. A couple details about the game itself, which are interesting. I don't know if you watched that behind-the-scenes video.
No, I haven't watched that.
But it's co-developed by Ubisoft Paris and then also Ubisoft Italy. And so it's the first time where Italian game developers are creating a Mario game, which is really bizarre to think about.
Really
We're going to be true to its heritage. Give them a gun.
They focused on like the crazy enemy design. Like now there's, how do you say it? Parabbit.
And the
plants.
The Donkey Kong
which is a good cute. Yeah, and Donkey Kong. I wonder how far they're going to go with that. If there's going to be an actual Donkey Kong in game, or that's just the one tie homage. But also very exciting. Grant Kirkhope from Rare fame, Perfect Dark, GoldenEye himself, friend of the show. He's going to be doing the soundtrack for it.
Hopefully we can talk to him about it because I bet that's a dream come true. For anyone who's into video game music and making video game music. It's like, I can use Koji Kondo's themes to inject into my own music. Like that'd be phenomenal. Yeah.
And then even seeing the gameplay, it is this is very much XCOM. I'm a little bit worried about it. Look, I'm glad it looks solid and that the internet turned
Wait,
around.
so are you okay? So are you now switching stances where everyone else is positive and you're
still-
like,
Always got to be the minority opinion.
No, gotta be the
I am
skeptic,
excited
that
for
Ben
this
Hanson.
game, and I'm glad that it looks solid. But I think people aren't focusing enough. Like, it looks really barren, both like the overworld
walking
and in
around?
battle.
It looks like there's not much.
I don't
going on.
understand.
Yeah.
Like, you control a Roomba, and then like everyone follows you. But I'm like, I don't know what that overworld is. What are you supposed to be doing?
I turned to Matt Miller in the middle of that presentation. I was like, "What are they? What is that?" And I think I said Roomba too. Actually, I was like, "What is that rabbit Roomba?" And he was like, "I think it's a rabid Koopa." I was like, "I don't know what that thing is. It looks
What?
robotic."
Mind
That was a
blown.
Roomba. What does Miller know what a Koopa is? I don't know. That's confusing.
Yeah.
But I am certainly excited to see more. It has like a really good look. It has a nice desaturated
Yeah.
look, which is usually the opposite of Mario games. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
like the Ubisoft desaturation touch because of like the Rabbids IP, which I guess kind of is a little bit desaturated as far as the art style. But fascinating. I'm glad they pulled it off as well they did.
Yeah,
Great one.
and then we saw the was it director out in the audience kind of tearing
That
up.
was
you know?
adorable.
Yeah.
Because like I get it. I mean, I can't. I will never be in that position. I don't think. But I get it. Like this guy who
Yeah,
probably
he
grew up
gets-
playing
yeah.
Mario
Yeah.
gets to work with him and use
100%.
Mario characters, and he's on stage
Yeah,
like
that's awesome.
elevating your game, and you get to
Yeah.
sit out in the audience and be like, man, that's my hero, presumably, like talking about this game that I'm making, and it was very sweet.
100%.
Yeah.
Serial number 4.
This is a bit of a weird one, but I think I was kind of surprised that we saw no mention or video or anything of Bloodborne 2 at
Okay,
These
around
are
the
just
show.
fans getting themselves in a tizzy, right? Were there actual like concrete leaks about
I
this
thought
thing?
there was
I
stuff
don't
that
I mean,
there's
Dan Tack
rumors
just
going on.
every day was saying that it was going to happen. I
there
trust him
were
with
several
everything.
people who were just
Dan
like,
Tack
no,
cried himself to sleep tonight.
that's the thing that I think people were bracing themselves for anything from Software.
Yeah.
From that team, because they said goodbye to Dark Souls.
Yeah, exactly. I think with that ending,
it was time for that, and the idea of not seeing it. I know it's not going to give us much to talk about, but not seeing that at all at the show was kind of like, huh. That's interesting.
It certainly, I think Sony could have used it overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was strange. Even like, it was on the Switch roundup of games and whatnot. So you'd think that even like, some sort of Switch game development from some
Chrome Hounds
software,
too, like whatever.
it's right there, man. We didn't get to see Dantech's nipples on the stream, so everyone.
Well, hey,
was
Nintendo's
I mean,
tomorrow,
it's not
right?
too late,
So,
That is true.
We've got a whole conference for him to do that.
Yeah, they could just suddenly announce Bloodborne 2 on Thursday
Nintendo Switch exclusive.
with a tweet.
Yeah. Kyle, number 4.
Oh, I gotta look at it.
Great.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared. Okay, so this is kind of a strange one. I don't.
Oh boy.
Well, okay, it's Spider-Man for PlayStation
All right,
4.
Not that
Okay.
strange.
Yeah, not that strange. But the reason that it surprised me is because I was kind of underwhelmed by it overall. And I was excited for it. I was excited for Insomniac Spider-Man. Like, that on its own, it's like, that sounds awesome. They ended the show with it, which was like, oh, they must have a lot of confidence in
big
this.
thing,
Yeah. But watching it, like, I pretty quickly was just like, I don't know if I like how this looks, because it was like, I didn't like how it was like, he was just kind of pointing to points and like pressing a button to zip to them for like a
Are
stealth
we talking?
sequence.
Okay, stealth.
I'm
Okay.
talking like the mechanics, and then like a lot of QuickTime events, and that just gives me flashbacks to Spider-Man 3, the game, which I think people were quickly tweeting about.
Oh, really?
Because those have famously hilarious and obnoxious QuickTime events, where if like you fail, you get an animation of Spider-Man like embarrassing himself, and it'll loop. Like I was
his pants.
like when I worked at GameStop and that game came out, I would actually get to a QuickTime event point and just let it loop all day while I was at work, because I thought it was like hilarious. Because like basically, if you miss a prompt, Spider-Man would like fall flat in his face, and then it would immediately restart that exact same prompt, so you could just let it loop forever.
good.
So that kind of like
GameStop company man, right?
that's
here.
right. So that I was the thing that surprised me was I was excited for it. It was the last thing, and then I was like, this looks really nice, but just the opening part of it just seems too like it doesn't seem like you're in that much control. But when he did finally get to go out into the city and start swinging, that I was like, that is the part that I want to play. Running along walls, doing all that kind of stuff. Very
But then
cool.
even that, it was just to get to the next QuickTime event with the helicopter.
Yes. Like I want to see how just like roaming the city on your own is, you know.
Yeah.
Like maybe those are just like the story moments, those like the main missions, but then there's like side stuff and there's a lot of opportunity to just run around and be Spider-Man. Like I still really want to play that game, but I was surprised how like just not enthusiastic I was about the first half of that demo.
I think I'm definitely curious just how big that world is, in general. And I think you look at like the Batman games that we've had, the Arkham games that have come out, and just how those worlds are very immersive and what they've done with that and like navigating them. And I kind of wonder, like, on what scale is this Spider-Man game?
Will they be comparable?
Will it be like that? Will there be, like, little side quests to go on along? Like, I just don't know what to expect from the game.
I think Sunset Overdrive is, like, an interesting template. I mean, it knows that a bulk of that same team. But, like, I was also just shocked that, like, they got out of the gate, and I think even Sean Layden, before he left the stage, is like, brace yourselves, hold on to your butts, get ready for this roller coaster. It's something like that.
He said like a true exclusive, which I wonder if that was a little bit of a snipe at Xbox.
I didn't catch that. But the part that stood out then is then when it cuts to gameplay, and it was just like stealth sequence, and it looked so Arkham, where it's like, I wrote in my notes, like, just swing from the buildings. Like, that's all anybody wants to see. We don't want to see you make, like, snarky, lines of dialogue as you stealth around this building trying to get Fisk. Like, that's not the Spider-Man thrill, as far as I understand it. But I see what you're saying with quick times. It might be a similar situation to, like, Anthem, though, where it's just for the sake of the demo.
Yeah, they had to
I mean, that stuff. That is a trailer that you can pull little sequences from and put online, and it will get people's attention for sure.
Right. Yeah, definitely. But that's it. Hey, number 4 for me. I don't know if you guys watched the PC gaming show today.
We didn't actually.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we were busy doing other things. I think I was at Microsoft.
It was all right.
I think I was eating.
It was a lot. It was better.
Is better than Bethesda's press conference. Yep.
I was staring at the ceiling of my room.
Lawbreakers got a release date, right?
A lot of Lawbreakers out there. Yeah. Absolutely. They also announced a little game called Age of Empires.
Oh, here we go.
So, Kim, what's your number 3?
No, real quick.
No, I want to hear about this because I also like Age of Empires.
So, wait. Before you, is your number for the PC show or specifically Age of Empires?
It's specifically not even that there was an Age of Empires announcement, because I think I also predicted that last week's show. But
there's no way to know for sure.
There's no way to know. But it's the idea that it's not a new Age of Empires. The surprise is that they're remastering the first one, which they've done with Age of Mythology, and they've done with Age of Empires 2, like, gameplay-wise, the two best games in the series. And so just the idea, it's basically like if Blizzard remastered... maybe not quite as bad as Warcraft 1. Warcraft 2 is really good. But like something in that ballpark where it's like Warcraft 3,
if they done,
it seems like the obvious
Brood
choice.
War, and then like, we'll do StarCraft 1.
Yes, I guess so, yeah. And so there's just a lot of quirks, but it is fun. Like, it's the 20th anniversary of the first Age of Empires. That game means a lot to me. And they even said it on the stream, which is true. Like, you can't play it anywhere. You haven't been able to play it for so long. And so now for them to revive multiplayer is exciting. And they're like changing the gameplay a little bit. Like, they're adding like control groups. And the part I'm maybe most excited about, they're completely redoing the soundtrack, and like a full symphony is re-recording that soundtrack. And like, oh my God, it's gonna be at 4K, Kyle.
Are you all right?
Here we go.
I'm not all right. But they even like showed a little bit of the gameplay, and it's still like herky jerky. But I'm excited. I'm excited
like 4K,
to go back.
Doesn't really. It's like,
it's still just like a horse like glitching through a tree. But
I thought it was weird that was a bullet point. It's like all herky or
super herky jerky.
Yeah,
good. You really nailed that punchline.
I know. I'm not at all drunk.
But then the most important detail here, another big surprise, is they're like, look, remaster of the first game, 20th anniversary. That's exciting, but. Age of Empires fans, you might want to stay tuned for Gamescom. There might be a big announcement. So, in theory, a full, real Age of Empires.
That would blow your mind.
I mean, they confirmed basically that it's going to be there. So
they're adding World War II
but when you actually see that footage, come on.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what they call it, how it works, because it seems like Microsoft just experimented with trying to revive an RTS with Halo Wars 2, and I don't think anyone.
Do not resuscitate
it. Yeah,
I was at the Xbox. I'm looking at my wristbands to remember what it's called. The Xbox Media Showcase at E3 2017, and like a lot of lines for Sea of Thieves, a lot of lines for Crackdown. Just 4 empty chairs for that Halo Wars 2.
Which there's like an expansion they didn't even put during their press conference.
Ouch.
It's confusing. Anyway, sorry, Kim, number 3.
This might surprise people. I don't know if you know me, it shouldn't, but I actually thought there was a really good trailer for it, The Evil Within 2.
Oh, yeah, the Bethesda show,
Yeah, that
was
was weird.
That was my favorite. I really liked the first Evil Within. I mean, it had parts that certainly frustrated me, but I like those psychological thrillers, survival horror games. I thought this actually was a really interesting trailer for once. Like, I just like the song they played through it. And
big fan of Swimming in Milk.
Yeah,
I love milk.
Totally.
You know this.
But
I thought it was wax.
I'm happy to see them give it another shot, and I thought everything looked really interesting that they showed off of it.
Yeah, it was a little all over the place. I mean, I don't know how much it depended on like finishing Evil Within 1 to understand the context of what was happening.
I mean, without spoiling, because I'm sure people will want to go back. There are elements that they hint at the beginning of that trailer that allude back to the ending of the Evil Within.
Okay.
Just to put it out there, but
sure.
I agree with Kim. It's my number 3 as well.
Oh,
what the hell, you do?
But like, it's weird because like when I think back on my time with Evil Within, I think I left it thinking that was okay, but it's a game that has grown on me over time because I realized that it has a lot of really cool ideas. Like those first few levels, there's that level that is very reminiscent of like one of the key areas in Resident Evil 4 that's like the village. And that level is, I think, one of my favorite levels in a really long time.
Oh, wow.
And from there, it gets interesting, and then it gets interesting, and there's like, I feel like it peaks in a particular boss fight with the guy who has a safe for a head. I think that's a really cool, interesting boss fight. And then it just, from there, I feel like it just oscillates, and then like it ends really poorly. But there's
a lot of ups and downs.
There's
But
a lot of
new
interesting ideas.
Studio, new publisher,
exactly. That's
like,
what I'm saying. Now to do a second one, they could iron out some of those kinks.
Exactly, and so like I'm kind of eager to get back to that save room, like where you had that hallway.
Oh yeah,
and it's like
awesome.
it's a game that I am excited to see a refined version of the original, and so like this very quickly was something that I mean I posted on Twitter, it's like I want Evil Within 2 like before that conference. And I didn't think I was going to get it. Like, I thought that,
But Todd Howard saw your tweet.
That's right. And I said, oh, let's make it.
You know
what? Let's
there was, Mikami was in the crowd, and he didn't know he was making it, and so now you have to go make it.
Smash Brothers brawl situation.
Exactly. But that game never felt like it, kind of took off and stuck in people's imagination. So I'm excited that they are keeping at it with that series.
Yeah, for sure. Great one. Number 3, Kyle.
My number 3 is A Way Out. The Joseph Fares game.
Oh, yeah, that was early.
Yeah, so I was on a...
Is this a good or bad
this is good.
thing? Okay.
I think the rest of mine are good. I was actually on the flight during the EA press conference, so I didn't actually watch it live. But so like the first thing when I landed, like things were happening, and that was the one that I like clicked on first. Where it's like, oh, the new from the makers of Brothers. I want to see what this is, and it looked. I love Brothers. I think that game is fantastic. I did an interview after Brothers with Joseph Fares, and he is just a super passionate, awesome guy.
He was like, great on stage.
Yeah, like I actually still haven't seen that. All I've watched is like the trailer, and then like because they had like a cinematic trailer and then like a gameplay sort of breakdown, and it just looks like genuinely innovative. Like even though I'm not, I think I've talked to you about this before. Like I actually don't really love co-op experiences, but there just doesn't really seem like there's much like that game, and it looks cool, and it's just this passionate guy behind it who has, which I really love, just like one dude with a singular vision, given the resources to pull it off, and that seems like what that game is. So I'm really excited to play it.
It's funny because I actually turned to someone during that, and I said, if the creator of Brothers was not attached to this and you just saw that game, I don't know if you'd be excited about it.
I think that's
think that's the reason why there's interest in there. To me, it looks very generic. There's nothing that
so much.
It looks a lot like Uncharted 4. Like the prison sequence, and then when they're on the motorcycles as well.
Yeah.
Maybe they're even brothers. Where it's just.
But it's like, I don't know. Nothing stood out to me except for the fact that he is behind the game and maybe.
But wait, what about just
premise,
like?
I think,
what about the structure itself of like split screen for sure forever? That's crazy.
I think that's pretty novel, but like,
Yeah.
my biggest reservation in that game is that I don't think like the production is there for that game. I just feel like
I think
a lot
it's
of the
swinging
animations-
pretty hard.
Yeah. It's
There's like some
a
kind
lot
of
of the
weird
animations feel
the
feels
facial
stilted.
animations
And,
look
I
more like
mean,
Mass Effect than Anthem.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But it would be less of a problem if that game doesn't feel like it is about selling that emotion of just you and someone else having this connection and like cutscene having a narrative that is because they say like every time you play it it's going to be like every room has like some new mechanic and having this very organic experience, and so the lack of sort of production values, by which I mean like graphics and animation stuff like that. That I feel is sort of like thing that I'm kind of like iffy on, but otherwise I think it was fighting for my number 5 spot.
Yeah, it's a good sign at an E3 press conference where they announce something on stage and it's like, I don't understand what this person's talking about. Because he got out there and he's like, it's split screen only, but you can play online. I'm like, okay, hang on, this seems simple. Why isn't my brain comprehending this? But then it was like, I think he went on to explain a little bit better, where it's like, even if you're playing online with somebody, you will see their screen.
Because you have to see what they're doing.
Yeah,
right?
and
Yeah.
I could see this game, and there's also a part of me that's kind of like hoping like that this is just going to be a 4-hour experience. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like the production value is pretty high.
With a lot of like
like that a
variations,
lot.
a lot of like, yeah.
I would rather
Samurai.
have more variation in a shorter experience than it be stretched. And like I felt like Brothers was like that, like where it didn't feel too long, you know, or anything like that.
Even Brothers, I felt like maybe it would be a little bit too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally hear you. And if everything goes according to plan, maybe in the future we'll learn a thing or two about A Way Out on this very podcast from this press conference or from this LA station.
Why?
Yeah,
don't ask too many questions.
Number three for me is a broad concept, but it's not as simple as just disappointment in the show. It's disappointed in Sony's production of their E3 press conference this year.
Okay.
Like you didn't like the musical opening?
You know,
I
like
will go with
the
that.
picture and the weird picture-in-picture.
Where they
had with
slide out like
certain
the frame for the Spider-Man thing. We're like, what the heck?
You got
is
2
this?
TVs, everybody. We want you to know.
Yeah.
There was one point where they like showed the title, but they had the like audience shot, and it was way far back, and they're like,
Yeah.
What's this game called?
Well, forget that. Maybe you guys were watching on YouTube, but I was watching on Twitch.
No, we were watching on Twitch.
Okay, but it was panicking. It wasn't until the motorcycle was revving in Days Gone that the audio kicked in, at least for the Twitch feed. I'm not sure for YouTube.
No, we were watching on YouTube. Actually. We did
okay.
switch it.
Okay.
So we had full. And in fact, in our
was
internal,
unbelievable.
like we were talking on Slack, you were like, "What's going on?" Because you were in a different place.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What are you talking?"
You're like,
about?
are you freaking out about the Shadow of the Colossus remake? No, I am freaking out because they're showing an Uncharted trailer and there's no audio. You can just hear somebody fart from the theater. Like, this is
And we did.
an abomination. Absolutely. It was like, can you
Yeah.
fart? It was just insane. But then just the entire thing, it was only Sean Layden on stage, if I'm remembering correctly. And like, I understand they want to get out of that rhythm of like, have somebody come out, set this thing up, run the clip, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And they were framing it as like, oh, it's going to be nothing but games. But the entire thing just had this awkward pace, including just like a couple of stingers that didn't land where they announced Monster Hunter World, which is very exciting. I don't know if one of you guys are going to mention it later. And then like, oh, the stinger at the end is going to be the guy cooking in Monster Hunter. It's like, is that the joke?
That was,
Okay.
I think, a punchline more.
But then couple that with like the Spider-Man trailer, where in theory it was over, and like, oh, we're going back to Spider-Man. It's like, oh, I guess this press conference is still going, and then it just shows Miles Morales. It's like, oh, okay, Miles is in the game, cool.
Which
And
Reeves was not convinced that was Miles Morales. He's like, I don't know, you just look like some guy.
Oh, that was very clear.
I don't know.
But then it just like cut to like an audience shot, and you could see people like awkwardly
Getting up.
And it
standing
lingered
up,
on that
like-
shot, and then it was. I mean, you eventually realized that it was some guy going to talk to you about like, here's what we saw at the conference, but there was this lingering shot of people getting up to leave.
Well, even when they cut to, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but he was even standing there with a mic for like 3 or 4 seconds, just like,
Oh, so
are we
it's-
live?
Oh God, we still have to do this. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
just the entire thing. It just felt like a weird rhythm, and like the games, I think were fine. I don't think it was Sony's
good
best
trailers.
show. It was one of the weakest
God of War
shows
looks
for
great.
years.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
Sony has just like raised the bar so high that even when they just have a decent showing, like I thought this was decent.
I wonder how much of it was presentation,
But-
like you said.
I will give it like Ubisoft. I feel like had a good pacing where they had people explaining the games when they came on and just showed enough of the games. Where like Sony was more, we're just going to show and not give you any like commentary. I like having a little commentary from the developers on it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I think to your point about the production, I feel like they didn't use the stage as much as they did, like, because usually like at Sony they had like that whole year where they had a bunch of indies and it was like light, here's another person playing an indie game. Here it felt like it was one spotlight following a person for the entire thing, and the rest of the auditorium seemed very dark and unused by comparison.
Yeah.
It felt very claustrophobic in that way of just like, here's a guy, we have a screen, it's all we have, please don't look at this stage that might be falling apart, behind the rafters or whatever.
Wait, was it?
I'm sure that's not the case, but like it just feel like they didn't put enough. I mean, it's a weird thing to complain about, but
It is totally like if you just look at the lineup of games, it's solid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
just
for me. I
the
feel like
theatrics were a little
Sony
bit
had
lacking.
the most games I want to play.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Sony and Ubi.
Who
Yeah.
had
To be
the
fair.
where they cut out to outside to watch somebody play? Was that Ubisoft or was that?
That was
Sony?
Ubisoft showing Assassin's
Okay,
Creed
yeah.
Origins.
That was the only
very
weird-
That was my
That
favorite.
was the only weird part
That's
of
my
that,
number
but
one.
for the most part, they did okay.
Here's me playing it at home in my couch.
Well, that's fine, but it's like the glare on the TV. Or
that never works.
Well, they're trying to like
we
tease
forgot
it for,
about the sun.
They're like, stay tuned for after. We'll show you the full gameplay, and it's like, well, this is a terrible tease, like to just show a glary TV. But
it runs on TVs, everybody.
But real quick, just for the Sony thing, then too, like maybe you could have used some more games in there just to quicken up that pacing a little bit. But then, like in their pre-show, they announced like. Yeah, Undertale's coming to PS4. They announced a third supermassive game.
Yeah, what is going on there? Like they should.
I don't know.
They're very supermassive.
People love Until Dawn. I don't know why you don't blow that up. That they have a new game coming out.
You guys act like you didn't all play the PlayStation VR until Dawn.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of just because like the one that they announced during the press conference. What was it called again?
Something Inmate.
Hang on.
It clearly stood out to us.
For you.
No,
Inpatient.
The Inpatient.
And then Bravo Team.
Okay.
Those were
and
two
I
other
thought
ones.
There was another one.
Oh, the first one that they announced before the show.
They announced before the show.
I didn't write it down. But
well, anyways, that one sounded the most interesting to me, and I missed it because it was during the pre-show and we were doing stuff in the booth, and I couldn't like focus.
Yeah.
Well, what was going on?
I know it's a punchline too, but like they showed an Act 2 on Jeff Keighley's stream, and apparently the gameplay looks super good. It's like just take a 30 seconds to show off Act 2. Everybody.
I mean, leading up to that conference, it very much felt like, oh man, they have to extend because like there's so many games spilling out of it, and then the actual stuff they had in the game was good, but it felt like you could have grabbed a couple of these and made it a better conference.
But let's just be honest, God of War looks freaking amazing. Every time I see that,
I think
I'm just great. Like, I can't wait.
Is it? There's a new voice for Kratos. Have they talked about?
Is that right?
No, have they said that? Like. Do you guys know?
I know not.
Because it sounds like Clancy Brown to me, but I don't know. Like
Clancy Brown, if you're in the chat, let us know.
Yeah, Clancy, if he's in there.
Clancy, your friend Clancy.
Anyway. Kim, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is So I don't know if you remember this, Ben Hanson. Maybe 3-4 years ago, you pulled me aside after a press conference, and I was very upset that I didn't hear anything about Beyond Good and Evil 2.
I pulled you aside to
do like one of those like videos that we do.
Oh, okay, that seems like important content.
I just kept bringing it up because I was so pissed off about it because I've been waiting so long to hear about it. I think that was like 3 or 4 years ago, right? So to finally see that game on stage, especially after they told us it wasn't going to be here, so I had no expectations, right?
Which
was
the
the ultimate fake out,
yeah,
right?
when you go back and look at it, Michelle Ancel said, like, I don't know if E3 is the best place to show Beyond Good and Evil 2, which maybe he still believes that, but they did it.
They did it, and then to see him get a little emotional on stage too during it, like I'd been waiting so long, and it's weird because the game doesn't look like Beyond Good and Evil, like what you kind of remember from it. It's definitely a different shift in tone. But I kind of like it. It's this weird, like...
Still unclear. I'm excited to see if we will get gameplay at some point, because they showed it in the background. It was like, okay, jetpacking around. But they seem to be hinting strong in the multiplayer direction, where there's a part of me where it's like, man, if Ubisoft is swinging with this, is this going to be their Anthem? Is this going to be their Destiny? Is this going to be their weird shared world RPG?
Just the bigger spaces they're promising, too, look really cool, because... Like the first Beyond Good and Evil, like there is good exploration in that, but if you can really expand on that into a game now, because it's been so many years since we've had that game.
Well, what do you think about the prequel angle? Because you see the character with the green eyes, and it's like, oh, there's Jade, but now it's like, oh, I guess maybe it's her mom. Okay.
Yeah, they all look very different. Like I feel like you could have easily told me that here's some new franchise or something. Like here's
another talking pig.
Right. Well, I mean that like all the buildings are like very different. Like it did not remind me of Beyond Good and Evil until like they made very obvious references. Like here's a talking pig. Here's Jade basically. Yeah. Like it is very different. But I mean I'm into the difference.
I don't like the prequel angle. Yeah. I think that trailer looks very cool. I think the monkey was a cool character. I found him entertaining, even if he was being like unnecessarily vulgar.
Everyone seemed turned off by the monkey. He seemed interesting.
I liked the monkey. I thought it was cool. But the one thing, it was like, he's like, he's going to say the F word a lot because we're gritty now. Like, we've all aged 15 years. This is like,
Dan Hay already broke the seal when he was talking about Far Cry 5 on stage.
Yeah.
But like, I don't really like that it's a prequel. I think there was plenty of room to, like, because I actually played Beyond Good and Evil recently because we did a super replay of it. And
that's right.
Like, it ends on a cliffhanger somewhat. Like, it seems,
man.
And it, like, to wait all this time and then have a prequel seems odd.
What if it's both?
But
they said in the behind the scenes video it's just prequel.
Yeah, but
they didn't clarify, but they called it a prequel.
But that being said, like it was very cool and I liked it. And it was very exciting and just fascinating that it was absolutely fascinating that they did not leak that Like that is the craziest thing to me. Is that like Ubisoft is?
Oh yeah, that nobody expected that to go on there.
Yeah, like that was one of the biggest. It was hugely surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bizarre tone. It was fun to try and figure out, like, because I was live tweeting it, trying to figure out when is this Beyond Good and Evil. Like, there's a talking monkey. What other Ubisoft franchise could this possibly be?
The second I saw like a pig's hoof, I was like,
yeah.
it's Beyond Good and Evil 2. You know,
that was really
I almost
wild.
jumped from my seat. So I always put those moments high when you just don't
it was
think
super
a game's
exciting.
going to be there, and then you see it and you're like, oh my gosh.
Real quick, I watched the behind the scenes video. A couple like gameplay details they talked about is a lot of like co-op supported vehicles for getting around, and also destructible environments. Destructible environments. Not
and
like
then you have like a hook shot. Is that did they talk about that?
If you play as the monkey, and then they were big on like, hey, we need our monkey squad or whatever they called it to like help us playtest this game. And I'm curious what that's going to look like and when. But
that's another thing about that is like when they I don't remember how he worded it, but Michel Ancel was kind of like, it's like and we want your help to bring this game to life, and we all were kind of like, please don't be Kickstarter. Please don't be Kickstarter. God. And then when he crossed that line of like sign up for the whatever this is, we're like, oh, we all like breathed a sigh of relief, and we're like, thank God this isn't a Kickstarter.
Yeah, for sure. Suriel number 2.
Oh wait.
Yeah.
What happened? What's going on with Wild?
Who knows?
Is that
wasn't there.
Is he just working on both of them now?
In theory. He's splitting his time.
You took my number 2.
Where was Wild?
My number 2 is Monster Hunter World.
Yeah, baby. Here we go. Get into it.
I did not know that I wanted a Monster Hunter, and I think
Are you not a Monster Hunter fan?
No, I've actually never played any of those games.
Wow.
But like, I think when people were talking about the 3DS one, and it might be coming to Switch, and like I saw the trailer for that, and I was like, that might be interesting. And I kind of thought to myself, I could really go for a Monster Hunter that was like on PS4 and like cutting edge consoles, and just to see what that game is like, because it always felt like something that I could get into. But I never just pulled the trigger. And seeing that trailer and how in-depth that one fight with that T-Rex was, the idea that thing, would chase you. I'm not sure how much of this is new to Monster Hunter fans, but the idea that a monster could chase you across this enormous map, and it was all it was all systemic instead of like a cutscene or whatever. And the idea that mid-fight, he just like put on camouflage and kind of snuck up on it and had laid down traps on
T-Rex smelled him for 13 minutes.
Yeah, exactly, and like.
Another hook shot.
Another hook shot. The amount of like thinking and strategy that went into that one fight, they showed it off really well, and just that game looked really good. Like I was surprised by how impressed I was by that game, and it's a game that I'm super excited to see.
It's really bizarre. You're right. It was a huge surprise just because. I mean, it's a weird horse race for Capcom because they were on PS2. Yeah. They then switched sides, were embracing Nintendo as hard as they could. They just announced a 3DS and Switch version of the last Monster Hunter in Japan, and now to immediately announce a new Monster Hunter for console, PS4, and did they say exclusive?
No, it's coming to PC and Xbox as well.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, Switch fans. Oh boy. Yeah. That's rough.
But yeah, I'm this will be the game that gets me started on Monster Hunter.
Everybody says that every time, Suriel. You sure?
I really no, because I
heard this before.
Every time I see a monster, it's like that looks cool. Never get into it. Like it is always a game that is like, if I had infinite time, if I lived in another reality where I had no obligations, I would get into this. But this feels like something that I am going to carve out time for and like finally learn Monster Hunter. Also, I heard it might be a lot simpler than previous Monster Hunter, so. Might be a good
that's the rumor. I mean, we don't know if there's
they
that.
Yeah,
we don't know for sure.
Everyone, so people
it's weird showing
like, oh, I'm gonna start it now.
Yeah, but like at a Sony press conference, it's funny to show a character setting traps for a T-Rex and stuff. Like in the wake of how good Horizon Zero Dawn looks, I think there's always that part where it's like, it's Monster Hunter, awesome, it's coming to consoles in a big way again, but a little janky, a little hitchy around the edges here. Yeah. But that's just compared to the beauty that's Horizon Zero Dawn, But it's super cool, great choice.
Yeah,
Kyle, number 2.
Ori, Will of the Wisps.
Interesting. Yeah. Journey of the Wills.
I really like Ori and the Blind Forest. Despite it being very vague, I really liked what they showed. And it was also, it kind of is high on my list because not much else at Microsoft really surprised or particularly interested me. So this was like, I did not expect this to come. I really loved the first one.
Yeah.
And it was, I just really want to play it. Like, it was the one game coming out of Microsoft that I was like, that's the game that if I could pick one, I would want immediately.
You're You do remember that Xbox showed like 4,000 games, right?
I don't know. That one just stuck out to me. Like I think that team is great. I mean, the first game was awesome. I'm looking forward to see what they do with the sequel. I'm curious what the story is, and it looked good, man.
I like
it's a pretty ass game.
Love it, ass game. My number 2 is the surprise. I guess is just the industry starting to realize, hey, this Battlegrounds genre is really a thing. Yeah. We should really.
I think they'd call it the Battle Royale.
The Battle Royale genre. Thank you very much.
Weren't you playing Danganronpa?
What?
Danganronpa.
The original Battle Royale game. Yeah.
Oh, is that right? It all ties together. But no. So Xbox, Microsoft, they had Brendan Green, Mr. PlayerUnknown. Seems pretty known now, if you ask me.
Right. We got the exclusive though.
Yeah. But brought him out on stage just to say that, hey, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is coming to Xbox. There's a lot to unpack here, but it's still bizarre. And if you listen to the interview with Brendan Green a couple weeks ago on this podcast, I even asked him, like, why did you guys just post an update saying we're coming to Xbox and later PlayStation? That seems like a weird way to deflate it. Like, you think one of the big two would want you on stage, and he's like, yeah, we got to go to consoles. Yeah. But then it's like, yeah, they made it seem like a big announcement here. Yeah. And then they added a little salt and pepper on top of it by just being extraordinarily misleading. And it's just complete BS. Because he came out on stage and he said it's coming exclusive to Xbox One. And then he said, and the final version will have an update for Xbox One X. So if you parse the wording there, what he's saying, I think, is it's going to be in that Xbox Microsoft Early Access program. Oh. So there, it technically is an Early Access exclusive on a console. But when he says the words exclusive to Xbox One, and then literally it pops on the screen and the voiceover goes, exclusive. And then to show it, and then in fine print on the bottom it says launch exclusive. It's just a load of BS. And Microsoft did a lot of that launch exclusive stuff, but it was never more in your face than with PUBG.
Game, that was part of the announcement. It was like that's really the only announcement, because it's not like it's a new game, right? Their announcement was this game is coming to Xbox, and then also PS4.
Right.
So it was a little misleading, and like that whole console launch exclusive stuff, but that rubbed me the wrong way.
And it just reminds me of like, God, there was a second example, but Nintendo's been really terrible with it too. When it was talking about Stardew Valley, one of its streams, and even in the press release, it's like, hey, multiplayer is coming first to Stardew Valley on Switch. And then like Chucklefish and Eric Baroni.
Battle Chasers too.
Remember exactly. That? Yeah. That's the second one. Yeah. And then those developers have to be like, wait, what the hell are you talking about? Like, publishers can't just basically lie to everybody. Yeah. And it's like, who cares? Let's move on. It's like, no, we're not going to move on. You're lying to consumers again and again and again. This is maybe the most egregious case with Microsoft here. Yeah. But it just stood out so much. But then just beyond that, real quick on the PUBG thing, it was also at the PC gaming show. They're going to be patching in vaulting and like sliding over car hoods.
Oh, okay.
And also, it was unclear, but like fog, possibly dynamic weather, sunsets, also confusing if that's dynamic, but that's exciting for PUBG fans.
You know, I'm very excited to hear you talk about changes like that, because that's exactly how I feel when they patch new things into Dota. Of like all these really
minor. Hang on.
I'm just saying, like very minor things that non-casual fans aren't going to give a shit about.
PUBG is fun. Come on.
Well, and but like I pour over passions, and I'm glad that you are coming around to my side.
I'm on your side, Suriel. But I think maybe this is a good, crossover here, is just that idea of one of the beautiful things that I think about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is just how simple it is. And then 2 games after Microsoft showed PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, they showed from Scavenger Studios a game called The Darwin Project, and tried to really esports it up, and had like an announcer there.
That was rough.
I didn't mind that art style, and like I'm all for more of these games in this genre. But just seeing that gameplay, it's like, you guys are really missing the ball and what we like about this experience.
Even from a premise level, I don't think I think they are emulating that sort of narrative premise. Yeah. But I think systemically, that's not what that game is going to be. I think it's going to be like competitive multiplayer in terms of like you go into a match and it is a very small field, but the underlying narrative theme is
Hunger Games.
Yeah, is Hunger Games.
Well, because like the pre-rendered cutscene showed like people sneaking up on each other and like some guy trying to like survive by a fire, but the second it cut to gameplay, it just looked like people running around in circles trying to shoot each other.
Multiplayer of just like everybody runs around a small map and kills each other. I
will say that the announcer guy that they had on stage, he did a very good job. He didn't mess up once. He was energetic, but he was still just yeah, this is not what we
Yeah,
want.
it didn't fit.
Yeah,
Everybody.
like that stuff is always super cheesy to me.
Yeah.
Even as someone who does watch esports, it just seems like you are putting the cart before the horse by saying, "No, get interested in this in a competitive level." Like that stuff has to happen on the grassroots level of just people naturally interested in that game. And when you trot that out, it's just like you can't force it.
Yeah, can't force it. Kim, are we at number 1?
Yeah.
My math correct?
Oof. Should not be a surprise to anybody, but actually happened before all the press conferences. The new Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer.
Oh, that trailer to watch with Kyle where he said they didn't show anything new?
Yeah, he's full of...
I can't believe that's
Full
your
of
number
it.
1.
Oh my god. Okay, here, let me explain to you first off. Nobody thought
Hold on,
that...
cut her mic. She's talking about Kingdom Hearts.
Let me get... Okay, first off, no one thought
Hang on, I like Disney. It's okay.
that there was
Yeah, yeah.
anything Kingdom Hearts going to be shown at this show.
That's true. I'll give you that. Yeah.
I went to the
Okay.
Kingdom Hearts Orchestra concert, and all of a sudden at the
Hang
end
on,
of it...
I think you mispronounced Dorchestra.
Hey there, yeah.
All right, go
Anyways.
on.
Says 2 guys
At
who went
the
to the
end,
Zelda
Nomura
orchestra
comes-
like 2 weeks ago.
Cried.
And then frickin' Nomura comes out on stage.
really?
He flew here just for that concert to come on stage and show, but you didn't know the trailer was coming. And then the trailer comes on, and you're like, oh my gosh. And there's so much. If you're a diehard Kingdom Hearts fan, I'm revoking any card you have to that series. Because if you saw that
who you talking
trailer,
about?
Kyle, he's like,
pointing at
they
me.
didn't show anything in that trailer. You want to bring Roxas back? Like,
But
So
that
the idea
seems
is
like,
Roxas
that's
is
just
dead
2
and he wants
characters
to-
talking.
No, there's
that's
something
being like,
showing
oh
anything with
man,
the-
imagine
oh
if
my God, it is the
imagine if
most
Simba from the Lion King was
substantial
here.
gameplay we've seen. Like all
But it
that.
was in Worlds we'd
all
already
those
seen.
all those cool Keyblade moves. The one where like it could shoot out with the like sprinkles down on it. Like there's just a lot. There's hands on with those Keyblades. Like watch the trailer. Analyze it. There's a lot there.
I have
Kyle,
watched
your response?
it again. I
no,
watched
you
it
didn't
again.
even.
I
You
watched
just
it
don't
again.
get. Oh my god.
Before the stream, I was like, I gotta watch this for Kim.
It's a big effing deal,
It was just-
Kyle.
okay,
it's a
so
big and to be
Kim
in the
let the defense make his
auditorium, whoa,
make their
to
argument.
be in the auditorium with all those other Kingdom Hearts fans who were just losing their minds.
what's influencing
it was,
you.
Yeah.
No, I was one of them. It was a big deal.
No, I will absolutely give you we did not expect Kingdom Hearts at all. It is very, and I like Kingdom Hearts. Like to make that clear, I really like Kingdom
There's
Hearts
a
2
lot in that
A lot of your
trailer.
friends are
If
Kingdom
you've
Hearts.
been
A lot of my friends are
following-
Kingdom Hearts.
If you've been following,
I'm
a long
married to a
time,
Kingdom Hearts.
There's a lot in that freaking trailer.
But like, so yes, totally surprised. That's cool. Like, I like that there was something from Kingdom Hearts, and I was like, oh man, E3 Kingdom Hearts trailer. I'm gonna watch this. And like, as much as I love Kingdom Hearts combat, like it all kind of just blurs together because it's so chaotic, and that's kind of what I felt like when I was like the things that you're highlighting as your favorite things of like.
But that's what Kingdom Hearts combat
But I'm saying
is,
it's like it wasn't
chaotic
exciting
like
for me.
that.
I was like, okay, so we get some
I
new combat.
I thought there's some interesting stuff with the story there if you've been following the series and are really reading into it.
What are the
like,
big beats?
Are you a fake
bringing
It
Kingdom
Roxas
was
back?
well, it's
Kyle?
Roxas. It's also the stuff that they're bringing all the villains together for that big thing. And is Sora gonna go to the darkness? I don't know.
No.
I don't know. I don't
okay,
know.
The big thing,
But, like,
the
here's
thing
the
that
thing.
because like it's like a lot of the time was spent showing
You
off
can
like a
throw
Titan.
Goofy at people this time around.
I've
Come
always
on
wanted to
now, and
throw
he can
Goofy
damage people
into the garbage.
But, like,
There is
like
so
that-
much to unpack.
We've already
in
seen
that.
tons of Hercules level. We've seen that fight with
Yeah.
the Titan. Like
Yeah.
that's
Okay,
that
but
was
here's
what
the
underwhelmed
great part
me.
about it. At the end of that trailer, which I thought was a cool trailer, then they tell you we're getting a world reveal next month at Disney's D23 and a new trailer on top of that.
But
like
that's
for a game
that's
that
potential.
we don't know what we're
I
going to
can still be
see.
surprised
I
again.
think
Yeah,
it's
that news
still,
is incoming.
It's
I
like
think
boom,
is-
boom. So I am happy about
I
this.
will say in your defense, Kim, I hadn't seen too much of Kingdom Hearts 3 before then, and like the idea of watching all those Disney villains get together and speak Japanese, which is the way I watched the trailer.
Japanese
If it-
James Woods. I can't believe they got that.
Yeah, I know he speaks Japanese. It's crazy. But if it hadn't been for like the Final Fantasy characters they showed later on, I think I would have been pretty into it. But
You're,
Kim,
you're also talking to the girl who, like, at press conferences has gotten up and danced when they put
Yes.
Kingdom Hearts 3 stuff
Please,
on. I mean, I
woman.
think you have to understand there's been more than that.
Yeah, I mean,
I care to admit. There's just,
Kim, I am so happy that you're excited for that. But like for me, going into that was just it was very underwhelming because
I've never-
because I just wanted at least because like even if it was something that they had announced, like if I could see Rapunzel's character model or
Yeah.
see like see what just see San
Francisco,
Francisco or
yeah.
something like, but that just I understand that there are implications for the wider story,
There's
but
a-
like
that's
for
a
me,
big
like I just
deal,
looked at it,
that
I was like,
story.
I don't
That
see anything
story's
new
been
here.
15 years in the making, Kyle. Come on now.
And it's
Get
very
with it.
complicated and difficult
It's
to
very-
parse.
I've got it all here.
But I'm glad that you were so excited about it. Like that's great. And
I think what it was that, especially not thinking that it's going to come, and they didn't do it at a press conference. They just did it like, hey, all our fans are here at this concert. Let's just unveil this trailer. It was a very powerful moment. Because
like outside of that concert, we were like, oh, Kingdom Hearts is huge. Why didn't they have it on stage?
Yeah.
And then I watched it and I was like, oh, there wasn't much in this.
No, there's a lot in it. God damn it! Don't.
Guys, do you guys?
Kim, I'm sorry. I love it. It's my favorite.
You're killing me, Smalls.
I will get up off this couch if you guys will hug it out and just.
Are we?
Just come to peace with.
I'm just saying, there's a lot, and for a game that we have not seen much of, I welcome any new footage I can get.
Because you so rarely see any little snippets.
I remember one time they showed teacups in a trailer and I freaked out. This is the level.
As a point of comparison, I'm the guy who, leading up to Breath of the Wild, wrote news stories for Game Informer that was like, hey, this trailer had 20 seconds of new Zelda footage. So I definitely I understand your excitement.
You're really passionate about. Finally seeing stuff, and as you have to understand, I've been waiting for this. I feel like if you've played 2.8 and that fragmentary passage chapter,
which I did.
It leads it up into it so well that you're just like, this is what I have been waiting for. Give me Kingdom Hearts 3, and so anything that I can have, I'm excited about, and it makes the show for me.
There we go.
All right,
Suriel, number 1.
I will go with a maybe not so controversial pick of Dragon Ball Fighter Z.
That's your number 1.
I can't
believe that's your number 1.
And I get shit for Kingdom Hearts.
No, he's correct. Actually, it's checked out. I've done the math over here.
So here's the thing. Okay,
so
I know people are gonna typecast me as like, oh, Will, he's the fighting game guy. He is, he likes the fighting game. I am not as excited about that game on a fighting game systems level as much as it is able to say it is also an enormous love letter to Dragon Ball Z, which I haven't really been that much of a fan of, but seeing. Well, no, in recent years, I watched
Kim, I think we're on the same page now because this is very strange for me too.
In years, I watched the original. I watched up to the Buu saga. I didn't watch much of GT, but
you're fine.
Yeah,
I loved that series when I was a kid. Really kind of fell off of it, over the years, and they kept making games. But it's I could come back to it because it's the same story every time. But how much they're able to sort of fuse fighting game concepts with Dragon Ball Z and make it supernatural. Just like the idea of, there are lots of fireballs, and when Goku deflects them, they go into the background and destroy the background, which is like a 2D sort of the same thing they did with Guilty Gear, where all the models are 3D, but they move around in a 2D space.
Yeah.
And just the way, just basic concepts of a throw tech, which is when two players go and throw each other and they just sort of reset. Yeah. In that game, it is, instead of doing that, they just fight for a little while like they would in Dragon Ball Z, where they're throwing all the punches really quickly, and then they break. And the amount of you can tell those Guilty Gear guys, which is Arc System Works, love Dragon Ball Z, or at least they started loving Dragon Ball Z all of a sudden, and they have poured so much love into that game. And even though it's not my favorite series of all time, just seeing how good they've nailed the vibe of that series and made a pretty good fighting game. And
in theory.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are promising things that are in Marvel, it's 3-on-3 fighter, and the rounds are maybe a little bit too long so far, but
4
the
minutes,
idea,
right?
one of something, well, it's average, but one of the things that in Marvel vs. Capcom happens when you kill one character, there's a little bit of delay, and then the character jumps into the screen. So the thing that on a competitive level is weird is that the person who just got that kill gets to do whatever they want on the screen, and sort of it gives them an advantage. Yeah. Here, when you kill one character, there's a cutscene where the other character's all right, now I'm gonna fight, and they clash, and then it starts the round all over again. Yeah. And just the number of assists, and they do such a good job of here's this weird fighting game combo that also looks like something that would look out of DBZ, and then they end with a ridiculous super. If you do a certain super, it'll just destroy the entire environment and give you something different. The amount of I didn't know that I loved Dragon Ball Z as much as I did after I saw that game, and I am that game sort of. I am so excited for that game. I can't wait for it.
Do you worry about it having that MVC3 drawback, though, where I love Dragon Ball Z as well, I'm excited for it, but looking at it, it's boy, this is really fast. This is going to maybe turn a lot of people off.
I think there is cause for concern there, but I think people are going to be more welcome to it, because I think when they go into Marvel, it's just, I just want to see these characters fight, and I don't really have much of a context of how these characters should fight, so the idea that it's very chaotic is kind of weird to me. But with Dragon Ball Z, you expect lasers everywhere, just like, especially when it's 3-on-3.
Key blasts, please.
Key blasts, yeah. And the idea that just things are exploding everywhere, there's a bunch of lights and sounds, and people are just beating each other up for, you don't know how it's happening. I think people are going to be like more receptive to that than they would be with Marvel vs. Capcom.
If I may play the hipster, and I think Kyle will be with me on the hipster front here. Yeah. Hey, Arc Systems just made a 3DS fighting game, which is basically this exact same game.
Who?
Arc Systems.
Oh.
Extreme Budoden.
What
it
console?
was this exact 3DS. It was also 3-on-3, and it was solid. We played the demo a fair amount. Yeah. And it's like it barely was on the radar. And now it's like the fact that it's on consoles, I agree, it looks great and that's exciting, but it's like, where's all the enthusiasm? It's like, it was the same team making this exact game.
I guess, there's some truth there, but I think it had leaked online and people were kind of like, oh, this looks pretty cool. But I think part of it was like, they put this game on the main stage,
that was crazy.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Phil Spencer had to look at the Dragon Ball Z game and go, yeah, let's do it. Let's put Goku on the big screen. I love the big guy.
I love that no one actually said the title of the game.
It was hard, like
Dragon Ball
there
Fighters.
were so many spellings of that game of just like Dragon Ball Fighters, Dragon Ball Fighters Z, Dragon Ball Fighters Z. Like they did not do a great job.
My favorite thing was
was.
We were on our messaging system trying to figure out what the title was. I was like, Hanson, did you catch the title of that game? And what you did, which just made me laugh out loud, was you just posted the logo that you had screen capped in our chat system and said good luck. And I was like, I don't know what this game is called, but damn,
I think it's Dragon Ball Fighter Z, but like it's one word with the inner cap Z. It's real.
I love Majin Buu turning Goku into a cookie.
Oh
yes,
one of his
moves. That's pretty good.
But yeah,
it looks great.
I'm super excited for that.
It's nice because I've reviewed a lot of Dragon Ball Z games. And they always look okay, but then you look at like the Naruto games, which just look phenomenal, and I'm like, why can't we get Dragon Ball closer to this? And I feel like we are now. Like this is the best looking Dragon Ball game, and it's crazy that it was on Microsoft stage.
Yeah,
sure.
Agreed, totally. Number one, Kyle.
Number one is Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, I was hoping you would mention it because like it was fighting for my first spot on my list.
Yeah,
Boy, that was weird.
Weird. Well, I guess so. I mean, one of the reasons my number one is because I had zero expectation that this thing would.
It is
exist.
the biggest surprise in terms of like I had no idea. This came out of nowhere.
There was a rumor that like, hey, just renewed the license.
I
like
missed
Wario
that,
64 is tweeting it out, but
yeah, like Suriel and I were even talking about it. We're like, if they had just been like, hey, the PS3 remaster we did of Ico Shadow of the Colossus collection, we're putting that for PS4. It's the same game as 4K if you want. Like I would have been like, all right, I'll buy it again. I'll play that again. But to see this remade, like maybe it's dramatic, but like it was literally giving me chills like watching that because like I was just like, I can't believe this thing exists. It looks so damn good. Yeah. And like I was just like, oh, look at that guy. And I was like, and then I don't know, it totally blindsided me. It's the only trailer that the second the conference was over, I immediately pulled back up and watched again. Yeah.
Here's a question I have for you. Since this is a remake, if they update those controls, do you think that's going to take some of the magic away? Would you want this
I don't think they will.
Oh, okay, you're saying
because it is a remake, what if they try to like make that control scheme a little different? Because that's like part of like what people who you try to explain like why it's so great. Some people miss the point of it. And
what if they added sprinting?
I'm just saying like when they remake it, how far do you want them to go? Because I just thought seeing those graphics, that was enough for me.
Yeah. And I just replayed it because we did a super replay, and I don't know. I never really had a problem with the controls. Like maybe that first like hour, that first Colossus, you're getting the hang of pressing jump on triangle. But they could, because they did kind of streamline it, like the climbing stuff for Last Guardian. But it wouldn't really function with the stamina bar if they did it that way.
Because I have friends who just are like, I don't get it, Kim. I don't get it. I can't with those controls. And I've heard that so many times.
I could see it being an option.
I'm just wondering, like, when they go remake, how far are they going to go? And would that upset people if they did try to like tweak those controls to make them smoother?
I don't think I would have a problem with it.
Take away from the experience for people. I mean,
I don't think so. If they found a good way to streamline it, as long as I don't think that would really change my experience for it. Yeah. What I would want, I think, is like the Resident Evil approach to it, where like they
They
have the tank controls, but they do have these updated
That's the
controls.
best way to do it. Yeah.
But man, that
we were also talking a little bit about like, you know, this is a full remake. They have time to go back and reconsider. Are they going to add any of those excluded, you know, Colossi?
I bet they will.
Yeah. Well, that would be so.
But
good.
that'd be like it's the holy work. Do you add a new chapter to the Bible?
Think,
you know?
I would want them to. It's
I
know
have
it's
a
sacred,
couple,
but like yeah.
Do you think? I mean, if they were going to do that, do you think they probably would have mentioned it here, right? Or do you think that they had enough to go on?
That kind of
I feel like. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it ties into. I think one of the problems that we talked about earlier of having Sean Layden just come on the stage those few times is like it felt pretty unceremonious on Sony's stage. Like, by the way, Shadow of the Colossus rematch. Like, there was no one even said a
there's
word
no
about
fanfare
it,
for any
and
of
so
that.
that little bit more of that context, I think, would have helped for like
I mean,
what
we
the
did
hell
ask
is
the
going
question.
on.
It's like that's a remake, right?
Yeah.
Like they're
Well,
not.
yeah.
You know, there's that.
Yeah.
What's that? They called it.
Booth.
They called it a. Or Sony calls it a remaster on their site, but Bluepoint calls it a remake on their site.
Yeah,
It's
so it's
basically
just
the Crash Bandicoot treatment.
Yeah.
Right,
I hope
right.
so. Like, I think it would have been weird, like at a press conference, to say like for the trailer to play, and then Sean Lane comes down and is like, "And we'll have 2 new Colossi." I think that would have been kind of like a weird way to present that.
PS4 exclusive.
And there's always that thing that
launch
they're-
exclusive.
There was a reason they were cut. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you think Ueda is involved? I mean, surely he's like
Maybe
giving the
consulting.
thumbs up, the Miyamoto thumbs up.
Yeah.
As
you
far as
know?
the thumbs up go, we should point out that Bluepoint were the people that did the ports for
They did a pretty
PS3.
good
Or
job.
like,
And they're great.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And they also did Metal Gear Solid. They've done a lot of amazing port work, but this is a pretty ambitious project.
Yeah.
Also, it just feels so soon after Last
Yeah.
Guardian. That's the crazy part. Maybe they were just like working on it forever. Like, come on, Last Guardian, get out this door
I
so we
was
can get
just
this baby
surprised with
rolling.
how good it looked. Though.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah,
It
it
looks
looks
very
really
good.
great.
It's always weird with that stuff when they go and update because you're not sure if it's gonna like still retain the essence of like what you loved about it, and if sometimes when you make those graphics like more crisp and clear, it kind of looks weird. And I just thought everything looked pretty sharp and on cue, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, some people have complaints. It never really stuck out to me, but the complaints about the HD version of Shadow of the Colossus,
okay.
where
Oh,
there's
really?
extra, because it's a higher frame rate, there are animations in Agro's run that we normally wouldn't see. But
Okay.
because they increased the frame rate, like sometimes his legs look a little strange.
Oh,
And this is like an opportunity to maybe kind of just like really chisel down and clean up even those little tiny minor things that people were bugged by. But man, like I cannot wait to play that. I've played that game
same
4
here.
times now. I'm going to play it again, and I'm very excited.
Definitely. Great choice. My number one, we've kind of touched on a little bit. You guys even stepped on a little bit before we started recording. It was how emotional Ubisoft's press conference made me.
Oh, yeah?
Was the biggest surprise of the show, where it's
Yeah.
like, I like some Ubisoft games just fine. But it was seeing that Rabbids director, like with Miyamoto on stage,
the
announce the
teary
game,
eye?
cut to him teary eyes. Like, ugh! Oh my God, I'm getting emotional now just thinking about it. Look at
Yeah.
his gut punch. And then to cap it all off with Michelle Ancel going
Yeah.
up there, and the part that killed me. I'm a sucker for like long-term working relationships. For some reason, like that's my emotional kryptonite. And so when he went up there and he's like, "Oh, Guillemot, I want to thank you so much for letting me do this project. Come on stage." And he invited the Ubisoft CEO on stage, and who knows what's going on behind the scenes. But like you said, Michelle Ancel is working on Wild as well. So the idea that he is kind of one foot out the door for Ubisoft, but still just wants to have a tip of the cap for his boss in such a big way. And he was getting emotional. Guillemot was getting emotional. And ending with all those developers on stage. That was just a lightning bolt, and it was the biggest surprise of the show for me.
It feels like a 180-degree turn from a lot of their previous conferences, which we've said. You know, sometimes you get a lot of awkward moments of just like tone deafness, but this feels like someone finally figured it out. Of just here's how we present our developers as people who love making games without being really cringy. And and they nailed it.
And I feel like it
Because
should-
Ubisoft wasn't so try-hard this year.
Yeah.
Every
much
year
do you-
it's the try-hard.
Well, what do you think? I mean, I think Aisha Tyler does a fine job. She gets
Yeah.
way too much crap, but how much do you think it's just her not being there going for comedy all the time? They can try and be a little sweeter.
I think like without her, like not again, she did a great job. I think that sort of guides the tone of the entire conference.
I feel like that too, and just like the way, besides the Just Dance presentation, which obviously we knew was coming, but I felt like they just had a good pace, a good like, we're gonna, as you said, showing developers as people, also just showing a good amount of the game, but not too much, and then explaining, like having developers come on stage and talk about their projects. I just really, that is what I felt was missing from Sony's. And don't get me wrong, like I said, Sony, I look at Sony and Ubi's and I'm like, those have the most games that I'm interested in. But that was missing from Sony's, like some just like to put some developers or some even just like people explaining their games to what is going on there, because then it just feels very empty in a way.
Yeah,
like I'm just watching
absolutely.
this trailer and I don't know what the creative process is behind it, or I can't see the people are making it. To actually see developers get emotional like that was just really
Yeah,
a
and
really
they
great
got out of the
feeling.
gate with Rabbids that way. I mean, they went out of their way to explain so much, probably in response to the amount of hate online. In theory, Kyle.
Yeah,
but just when they said like, no, this is done with passion. Like
Yeah.
these guys
Why
are
don't you
in
just
love with
set the
this
record
style.
straight for people? Don't leave
Yeah.
them with guessing games, because I feel like even with some of Sony stuff, I was sitting there like, well, wait, is it this? Is it that? I don't know. And to just have developers come on stage and kind of, clarify what it is that they're showing, so you have something to go off of. I think it goes a long way.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Ubisoft started where they were having people explain, like, I make video games, this is what I did for a living. Like that guy told the story about his house burning down. That was Ubisoft.
That was
Right?
Bethesda.
No. This Ubisoft had something similar. That's actually
Did
the
it
point
really?
I was getting to.
Bethesda had a bunch of kids.
Because Bethesda had all the developers' children talking about it, and then Ubisoft had weirdly sort of mirrored that with like people talking about, this is why I love making games.
It must have been the pre-show then.
Yeah.
I
It was
missed
the
that.
pre-show.
And it was, and that was, by the way, that Bethesda thing really cracked me up, because it was like, oh, it's kids, cute kids talking about their parents making games, and then it immediately cuts to Doom,
Yeah,
and
just
murder, like murder, and I was like, then Ubisoft, they're like right out of the gate, they're like, hey, we're human people who are pressing buttons on keyboards.
Right.
Please appreciate what we're doing for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it.
Yeah.
It's some solid press conferences. We're sorry we didn't get to Nintendo. Like I said,
Well,
next
what do
episode.
you guys think for Nintendo? Or what are your hopes? I want to see some Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be a passing
The Mana
reference, right?
Collection, I would love to have that announced.
Well, you could just buy it in the Japanese store
I know,
I-
but...
and play in Japanese.
I want to see Mario Odyssey. I think.
Yeah, I want to learn more about that.
I heard
for
it's
sure.
not
Mario
here.
Odyssey, yeah. I'd like to...
Just
I
Nintendo's
want
gonna like it.
nothing
I
to
want
do
to
with
see
that.
how that game is structured. I just want to
Yeah,
see
totally.
some extended gameplay of like, here's Mario, jumping on things like
Totally.
he does, and
Like he do.
Yeah, like he do. Mario jumped on things. That's what he does. But just like to see how. I hope they show stuff like, here's how you go from world to world. Here's what you do
Yeah.
different levels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see what they have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're probably going to get to play a lot of Nintendo's games. So I think on tomorrow's episode, we'll talk
we'll
all
have
about it. So it should be
impressions.
fun. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff to break down. So we're doing episodes Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Developers coming in, more people on the couch. We're going to rotate in a bunch of people. But that's it for this episode of the Game Informer Show. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and we'll see you tomorrow, I guess. Bye, everybody.